Okay, thank you all for joining Climate Work Maine this morning. It's our fifth webinar in our Business Connector series. My name is Jeff Marks. I'm Climate Work Maine's Executive Director. Climate Work Maine consists of businesses of all sizes, all types, and we provide services, networking to support and promote companies with products, services, projects, anything related to climate solutions, and also support and assist companies that want to do more on climate change. Our events are supported by our members, including our Climate Work Maine heroes like Bangor Savings Bank, Central Maine Power, Hannaford, and Unum Insurance. We also have our leaders like Androscoggin Bank, Benchmark Real Estate, BNRG, Dirigo Solar, Chinbro, Lee Automalls, LL Bean, Nautilus Solar, Northern Light Health, and Train. So I'm sure many of you recognize those companies. They were early supporters of our organization, and we wouldn't be able to do these events without them. Today's session is about Maine's winters, its outdoor recreation industry, and businesses that in some cases really depend on the weather and climate, especially Maine's small businesses who depend on consistent accessibility and use of our forests, our rivers and lakes, mountains, trails, and all of the recreational activities that are connected to our natural resources. So for our session today, we want this to be more of a discussion. So we urge you to ask questions, and please do that using the Q&A link on your Zoom screen. Andy Shepard is here with Saddleback Mountain. He's one of our Climate Work Maine's new board members, and he will moderate the session. And I do want to thank Jen Brooks for producing our webinar and making sure that we all see and hear each other. So I'll turn it over to you, Andy.
Thanks, Jeff, and it's an honor to be a part of this. As Jeff mentioned, my name's Andy Shepard. I'm the founder, president, and CEO of the Maine Winter Sports Center. I was also involved in the purchase and redevelopment of Saddleback Mountain as their GM and CEO until I retired in December. And I'm excited by the quality of the panel we have this morning, from the depth of research that's going to be presented to the breadth of industry experience. Outdoor winter recreation represents a critical part of Maine State's tourism economy, but also a critical part of our brand. For example, according to Bangor Daily News report in 2022, revenue from Maine's 18 ski areas, along with income from overnight stays, restaurants, and other related spending, represented $1 billion and 5,000 jobs. Add to that a similar combined impact from snowmobiling and other outdoor winter recreation, and I think you get the picture of the importance that outdoor winter recreation represents for Maine. So our panel will provide data and insights to get the morning session started and hopefully spark a conversation about how to make these industries more resilient. That word resilient will be heard often throughout the day, and if nothing else comes out of this session, my hope is that as we face climate change, that our businesses understand that we can work through this. It'll require leaning into this concept of resilience. So I'll introduce the panel in a moment, but as Jeff said, we want to make sure that we have ample time at the end to answer whatever questions you have, and hopefully there will be a lot of those. And you'll be able to pose your questions on this site, and I'm going to be auditing that to try and make sure that I get the questions that are asked answered. If you don't hear your question being asked, don't hesitate to pose it again, because I may have missed it. So with that said, we'll start off with Liz.
All right, thank you so much. Wonderful to meet you all. And I'll wait for a second for Jen to get my slides up. So I'm Liz Burakowski. I'm from the University of New Hampshire. I've also done a little bit of research up in Maine. This is one of our field sites at the University of Maine in the Dwight Demerit Forest. You could advance to the next slide. One thing I want to start off with is just acknowledging that winter is our fastest warming season here in the Northeast, and specifically east of the Mississippi River. Anywhere you're seeing a blue dot on this map, winter is warming fastest since 1970. When we look at winter warming rates, we can go to the next slide for that. We can see that New England is in a hotspot of winter warming. Every state in New England has seen at least 5 degrees of warming since 1970. And this is important because this is over a generation. This is my parents' lifetime. I was born in 1981. My parents grew up skiing in New Jersey and West Virginia. And today, New Jersey and West Virginia both have average winter temperatures that are now above the freezing threshold, above the melting point. So this is a critical threshold for them. That's okay. You can advance to the next one. Yep. In terms of what this means for New England, we released a report in 2019. You can find this at hubbardbrook.org. We want to confront our changing winters, and part of that includes the winter recreation component. I'll give you 3 key findings from this that apply to the Northeastern United States and specifically to Northern New England. You can go to the next slide. First is that we are losing cold. It's not just that we have fewer days below freezing, we also see less frequent extreme cold events. So these are the days that are well below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Next slide. We're also losing snowpack. There are simply fewer days with snow cover, and that means more resilience. We need to adapt with more snowmaking, for example, at the downhill resorts. Next slide. We also are seeing a shortening of winter. So the overall sustained cold winter period, when we see front temperatures dip below freezing and then stay below freezing, that period of time has gotten shorter, and it's also become more intermittent. We see more freeze thaw events sort of happening throughout the Northeastern United States. And overall, we see these midwinter thaws that are really disrupting the natural snow cycles and snow preservation throughout the region. Next slide. If we look at the state of what things are right now, I mean, we are getting some snow today. This was as of yesterday, though. The snow deficits are very apparent across the state. This is our snow depth relative to average. Anywhere you're seeing a red color or an orange color, that means that we're seeing a below average snowfall. And in some places in Maine, it's upwards of 2 feet that we're missing on the ground. Next slide. We know that this is, from a scientific perspective, that this is largely due to changes in atmospheric carbon dioxide. This is a heat-trapping gas that is released from the burning of fossil fuels. Tracking this over the course of, say, my ski career, I learned to ski at Saskatchewan 6 in 1988, and we were at 351 parts per million. You may have heard of organizations like 350.org. That is in reference to having our atmospheric concentrations at levels that we haven't seen since the late 1980s. When I switched over to snowboarding and at Pat's Peak, we are already up to 360 parts per million. When I was a graduate student at the University of New Hampshire, we got up to 380 parts per million. These were the weekends that I was going up to Sunday River and Sugarloaf to go skiing, riding. And now today, my students have an exam on Tuesday next week. They have to memorize 420 parts per million. And this makes us wonder, where are we going to be in the future? What levels are we willing to accept? And how much more winter warming is going to accompany that? Next slide. We want to know, like, are our winters going to be like this? I won't tell you which mountain this is, but it's one in New Hampshire. But this was not a great start to our ski season. In December of 2023, Maine recorded its warmest December since record keeping began in the 1890s. Next slide. We know that we've made a difference already, though. This was our climate trajectory in terms of CO2 emissions. This is historically, we saw a big dip in 2020 associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. When the Paris Agreement came into place, we came off of that trajectory that we had been on since the 2010s. That's the good news, because that is CO2 that's not going to be in the atmosphere by 2050. That's what we're looking at here. Our 2021 policies take us on this trajectory, slowly declining CO2 emissions. Where we want to be is somewhere closer to this yellow line. That brings us down to 0 emissions. This is where we stabilize climate. Once we reduce emissions to 0, then that means that we can actually have a stable temperature. But as long as we're emitting CO2 into the atmosphere, we're going to see more warming. And I'll give you a picture of that in the next 2 slides. This is where we would have been had we not signed an international agreement, an international treaty known as the Paris Agreement. This was our trajectory for snowmaking nights. So this is the number of nights below -5 degrees Celsius projected out into the future. We would have seen declines, and each one of these triangles represents a ski resort in the Northeast. We would have seen upwards of 30, 40, 50, some places even 60% decline in the number of nights for snowmaking. Next slide. With action, when we stopped with 2021 policies, it's actually looking a little bit better. We still have challenges, but snowmaking, you're only seeing declines on the order of 10 to 30%. If we want to keep it at a 0% decline, that's where we need to be in terms of zero emissions by 2050. So we have a long way to go to get there, but we can do this. Next slide. One of the most things that gives me a lot of hope is that we've already seen emissions starting to slow and that we might have seen a peak as soon as last year. We're waiting to see in October of 2024 when the IEA, International Energy Agency, releases its World Energy Outlook. That might mean that we could have seen a peak in 2023. If it's not this year, it maybe will happen by 2025, and then we'll be on a downward decline for emissions. Next slide. What also gives me hope is that we've done this before. A lot of us grew up talking about the ozone hole. You don't hear as much about it now because the Montreal Protocol in 1989, also an international treaty, reduced the emissions of CFCs, long-lived chemicals in the atmosphere that were affecting the ozone hole. If we do the same thing with carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, we'll be on a path to stabilize climate and hopefully within our children's lifetime or even our grandchildren's lifetime, start to cool climate again. And that is all I got right there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Liz. Carol Ann.
Thank you, Andy. Following Liz is going to be a tough run here, but really happy to be part of this incredibly important conversation. So thank you. I thought it might be helpful just to provide a brief overview of the Office of Outdoor Recreation and what we call the OREC movement at the national level. Maine was the 10th state to establish an Office of Outdoor Recreation in 2018, thanks to the work of Maine Outdoor Brands. Currently, there are 21 states that have created an office or position specifically focused on the outdoor recreation economy. Connecticut and Massachusetts were the last two most recent states. So New England has 5 of its 6 states with offices focusing on this specifically. The formation of these offices marks a shift in the traditional conversation about both outdoor recreation and state economies, and our initiatives coordinate across the functions of economic development, tourism, and agencies that manage natural resources. And for Maine, our focus is to leverage Maine's assets and outdoor recreation heritage to grow the outdoor recreation economy, build on our brand as part of a coordinated effort. And we do this in partnership with public and private sector folks. We really serve as a central point of contact for the industry in Maine. We monitor emerging trends and issues that may potentially impact recreation assets and experiences in the state. And obviously from Liz's data, climate change is certainly one of those and critical. More importantly, we really act as a connector and convener. We work closely with partners at the national level as well, including Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, Outdoor Industry Association, and we're members and current co-chair of the Confluence of States. Andy mentioned some economic data right in his opening, and those numbers were economic impact. What we have now that we can use year over year is the Bureau of Economic Analysis, through its Outdoor Recreation Satellite account, measures the economic activity, which is really just direct sales and contribution to GDP. So the numbers I'm going to give you will be lower, but they're not, they are direct sales. They don't include indirect and induced. Outdoor recreation in Maine contributed $3 billion to Maine's overall state GDP in 2022 and supported 32,000 jobs. Maine ranks 6th in the nation for the percentage of outdoor recreation's contribution to state GDP. So it's a really important driver. Notable contributions by activity. Boating and fishing is always our top at $412 million. Followed closely by RVing at $326 million, but snow activities always sits into the top 5 or 6 notable contributors to the state's GDP. In 2022, snow activities, which includes a broad brush, 68 million in total. And I also, right close behind it, are guided tours and outfitted travel at 66.5 million. And I note that because that component of outdoor recreation crosses all 4 seasons, but certainly has a strong piece of winter business. I will say noteworthy increases from 2021. Snow activities were up 35% in overall contribution, and guided tours and outfitted travel were up 26%. The other note here is that these do not necessarily correlate directly to participation. This is about spend and investment in production. The other thing I looked at was recent winter visitor tracking reports from the Office of Tourism to get a sense of what visitors in-state and out-of-state are doing and why they come to Maine and those activities that they participate in the winter. So I looked at the last 2 years' reports. In 2021 to 22, we had about 3.5 million visitors for winter, and then that increased 15.3% into the 2022-23 season to almost 4 million visitors. Reasons for visiting are pretty similar for both years. So this is why people come to Maine in the winter. So friends and family is always top of the list, followed by relaxing, unwinding, sightseeing, going to special events, shopping, nature, kind of bird watching, and then snow sports follows those. But snow sports increased from 2021 to 2022, between those 2 years from 11 to 13% as to the reasons why people were coming to Maine in the winter. The other thing I think is really important is looking at the breakdown of the active outdoor activities. So once they've come here, these are the things that they participate in from an outdoor activity perspective. The thing that's really interesting here, and these are consistent, fairly consistent year over year, hiking and backpacking actually leads the list for winter activities, followed by snowmobiling, exploring state and national parks, and then comes alpine ski and snowboarding, followed by snowshoeing, which is right in line with Nordic skiing. Some of the other activities, fishing, camping, fat biking, and going to the beach. And I put these out there simply in context of people are doing a lot of different things in the winter in Maine. Timing right now is perfect for bringing our industry together to start to map out the next 10 years. And Jenny will talk a little bit about the outdoor recreation economy roadmap. But I think as we've started this process, so much of the outdoor recreation economy, we know so much is dependent upon weather and climate. Sustainability and climate resilience have emerged as central considerations right now for this roadmap from early visioning. Businesses have cited the growing need to adapt renewable energy and clean tech, and they're already moving to and continue to have a strong interest in ensuring products and services they offer are sustainable from a lifestyle perspective. Some of the innovations we're seeing, and this is not just in Maine, but across the industry. Skidoo in 2023 introduced an electric snowmobile, its first one. Tega Motors introduced a lineup of electric snowmobiles in 2021, and they're working to create more remote charging networks. We've seen a lot more use of electric ice augers. Shred Electric here in Maine is looking at batteries that move from boats to snowmobiles. We've got new snowmaking technology, and Andy can speak to this probably better than I can, but you think about what ski areas over the past probably 10 plus years have started to invest in snowmaking technology and energy efficiency measures to reduce their carbon footprint. Just a couple of calls to action. Maine's Climate Action Plan. I'm sure all of you are very familiar, but just great guidance with a guide to climate incentives. And I'd say there are a lot of groups nationally that have really focused and set a priority on this. Snow Sports Industry Association, they have a winter outdoor sports industry climate pack. They're in partnership with the European Winter Sports Sustainability Network. So really looking at this globally with partners. National Ski Areas Association, their climate challenge. Most of our ski areas in Maine have signed on to that. Outdoor Industry Association Climate Action Corps. The OIA really wants the outdoor industry to be the world's first climate positive industry by 2030. LL Bean was one of the founding members of the Climate Action Corps. And then, of course, Protect Our Winters, which is really, for anyone who's interested in the outdoors and just looking at climate and how it affects winter, they're really giving a national voice to this effort and, to how the sports community and how the outdoor recreation industry broadly across the nation that's now supporting 5 million jobs and 1.1 trillion in annual gross output, how we can all continue to help make this workable for us in the long run. And I'll leave it there.
That's great, Carol Ann. Thank you. Jenny.
Thanks, Andy. And hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Jenny Kordick. I'm Executive Director of Maine Outdoor Brands. We're an alliance of the outdoor product, service, and retail companies in the state of Maine. So we have about 180 members, and we support our members with collaborative marketing, knowledge sharing, and access to professional resources, networking, and advocacy. We work really closely, as Carol Ann mentioned, with the Office of Outdoor Recreation with this kind of joint charge to grow and strengthen Maine's outdoor recreation economy. And so one of the things I think we look at as the trade association is looking ahead and saying, you know, what do we need to ensure our members and our industry is thriving into the future? And so climate change certainly is something that's top of mind for us. Our industry is dependent on people getting outside. So we are on the front lines of weather disruption and climate change. There's already been some just really great information provided, and I just want to hit on three things that we're thinking about in context of climate change. Knowledge is one, innovation is the other, and then marketing and communications is the third. So I think knowledge is a really big piece. It's been great to have Liz provide some of the details as what's happening, like for us to understand what is happening and what is the future, what the future is going to look like. How can we start to plan around that more proactively is just really important. I think we recognize that we don't have all the answers right now, but the more that we know and we can prepare is going to help us have a competitive advantage going forward. So we know that climate change is going to impact the product mix and experiences that businesses provide, the inventory that you might have on hand, and how you're marketing to consumers. And I think for individual businesses too, really understanding what's the impact on your own business. We have a number of companies that are looking at their carbon footprint through their energy use, through their supply chain, vehicles they have, and really looking at measuring and tracking and identifying tools to do that. So I think the knowledge piece is important, and I appreciate the work of Climate Work Maine in this respect as well. Innovation is another big opportunity for us. There's going to be changes, and we're going to have to change and adapt as an industry. And so, I think working in the business community, we do see a lot of innovation happening, and businesses that are successful are constantly innovating. So how are we adapting and pivoting and responding to be more resilient? We've been describing this as climate proofing. Like, how are you climate proofing your business? The examples that Carol Ann gave were great on electrification. And I do think ski resorts have been leading the way on this too. Andy, you'll have to touch on snowmaking, because that's a really important climate proof for the ski resort industry. And so really thinking about like what are efforts to be more sustainable. And I think diversifying your product mix and investing in off-season activities too. We've seen the ski resorts again leading the way on that, and thinking about what are kind of year-round activities, mountain biking, hiking. I know Sugarloaf in particular has done quite a bit with bringing trail racing and mountain biking events up there, which has been exciting to see. So I think this is another innovation is just top of mind, and we're going to have to really think about how we're innovating as an industry to be successful in the future in the face of climate change. And the last thing I'll touch on is just marketing. I think this is one that we're thinking about a lot, is how are we marketing and communicating out to consumers about the changes that we're seeing. And I think as an industry, we're going to have to be more flexible with our marketing strategies. And one big one, I think, in the state, I think, is doing a really good job on this, is just recognizing safety, right? Like we have had kind of unpredictable weather and ice conditions, and for people to be going out, they need to be knowledgeable about the conditions out there. And so I think we're going to have to be doing a lot of this as an industry going forward, is making sure that our customers and consumers are aware and equipped and knowledgeable about different and changing weather conditions. And to Liz's point too, our winter is getting shorter here, but it is everywhere else as well. And so Maine's winter kind of comparatively is actually going to be better than a lot of places. And so I think that's also a role that we can play as a state to be more resilient, is ensuring that our consumers know where they can go find winter. It's raining in Portland here today, but I just got the snow report from Andy, and it's snowing buckets up at Saddleback. So just encouraging, I think thinking about marketing and getting the word out about where there is good weather conditions, winter conditions. And then I'll just end with two calls to action. Carol Ann mentioned the outdoor economy roadmap. So this is a project that we're partnering with the Office of Outdoor Recreation and the University of Maine on, to really look ahead and say, okay, what do we need as an industry to thrive into the future? What are strategies that are going to ensure continued growth and sustainability of the outdoor recreation industry in the state of Maine? And there is a focus on sustainability and climate. So we actually have a workshop next week. It's going to be on the 27th from 10:30 to 12, and would encourage you all to join that. That's going to be focused on sustainability and climate change, looking at sustainable transportation for people and businesses, clean technology, climate adaptation, energy efficiency, business adaptation, and extreme weather resiliency. And I think, Jeff, maybe you can put the link to that in the chat, or as follow-up for people to sign up directly. And then my last call to action is just, I think it's is a fun one. I think is just to get outside and enjoy winter, and especially think about bringing the next generation out. So getting kids outside, enjoying winter. I have a 2-year-old myself, and we've been doing a lot of ice skating. He's really into hockey right now, so we've had a lot of fun this winter doing that. But I think it's just important to get this next generation invested in caring about this too. There's a number of amazing organizations in Maine. Winter Kids is one of our members that are helping get kids outside and having fun in the snow and in winter. So I think that's important for us to be doing too. And I'll end there.
Thanks, Jenny. I'll only say that if having a young child leads to sleep deprivation for parents, you've seen nothing before you realize what time hockey sessions. So anyway, Shay.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Shay Bellis, and I represent NaviTour. It's an innovative online booking platform that's based in Maine, and it's designed to bridge the gap between individuals that are seeking sort of unique guided outdoor experiences and the local experts who provide them. We have over 170 guides that specialize in a variety of outdoor activities, obviously hunting and fishing, but definitely hiking and biking, kayaking, culinary explorations, historical tours, scenic boat rides, stargazing. So we really do truly cover kind of anything you can do outside. What distinguishes our guides beyond their diverse offerings is that they have a real firsthand insight into the impacts of climate change on the natural landscape that they operate in, and the adaptations that they've had to embrace to continue delivering those sort of memorable experiences. So they've observed changes, obviously, as everyone's talked about, in snowfall patterns that affect the timing and the locations of their tours. There's a very big shift in wildlife behaviors in the populations due to the warmer winters and wetter springs. There's some direct consequences of longer tick seasons and more frequent coastal storms on their schedules and on their programming. But speaking to resilience, despite these challenges, they've shown remarkable resilience and adaptability, and continuously sort of innovating to offer engaging experiences while addressing the realities of climate change. And I love the word climate proofing. I think that definitely applies to what they're doing. They're definitely at the forefront of building a climate resilient economy. In Maine, they are witnessing and responding to changes in wildlife populations, in migration patterns, in habitat availability. Their work not only contributes to our understanding of these impacts, but it also plays a vital role in the future of outdoor recreation in our state. So as we move forward, it's critical that our decisions are informed by the best available climate science, that we remain proactive in our efforts to navigate and mitigate the challenges posed by the climate change and to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented. The pathway to that is going to be collaboration and partnership across all sectors and communities. That'll be essential in leveraging resources and expertise towards sustainable solutions that will benefit not just the outdoor recreation, but also preserve our natural heritage for future generations. Our guides definitely pride themselves in being stewards of not only the habitat that they're guiding in, but also the communities in which they serve. And when you have things like people moving their winter experiences out of the greater Portland area and into the mountains, they now have to find accommodations and restaurants and things for their guests that are in communities that maybe haven't opened yet for the season or are already packed with other folks that are there. So I'm really honored to be here and to talk about this very important work. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right, great. So let's dive into some questions. We got one from my old friend Susan Morris asking about snowmaking, and that's kind of been a topic of conversation throughout the morning so far. So, you know, when we look at Liz's data, what's clear is that New England and really the East is one of the hot spots, if you will, pun intended, in our country. You know, we're suffering the greatest increase in temperatures over the last decade, was it, Liz?
It was since 1970.
Okay, since 1970. So, but we also have to keep in mind that that's relative. So, you know, Maine's average temperatures would have been significantly lower than New Jersey's, for instance. All of our temperatures are rising, but what's clear to me is that Maine will continue to have winters where, you know, New Jersey, the mid-Atlantic, and the southern parts of New England, it's hard to see ski areas continue to operate in those areas. And it's largely because of the temperature increases that now have a lot of their average temperatures above freezing, and they just don't have enough days to be able to make snow. When we look at the challenges for winter sports, there are two areas. One is average temperature. Are there enough days that are below freezing that give ski areas the opportunity to make snow? The other is precipitation trends. And, you know, are the areas that used to get natural snow, are they still getting natural snow? The answer to both of those is robust snowmaking capacity. And when we think about that, you know, what sports would that be able to support? Well, certainly alpine skiing, cross-country skiing. It's hard for me to imagine that that would be able to have an impact on snowmobiling, for instance. Average temperatures may reduce the depth of ice on lakes and ponds. So a lot of the ice skating and events that we used to have on lakes and ponds in Maine may have a shorter season as well. Ice fishing derbies, those kinds of things. So, you know, for the last 20 years or so, snowmaking in Maine has been, you know, a cost of doing business. If you had that, you were insured of a good long season. If you didn't have that, then you were at the mercy of Mother Nature. I think that's even becoming more existential now. It's not an insignificant cost. There's a lot of electricity involved in that. The answer for Saddleback, for instance, and I'll speak to that because that's one I have the most experience with. We knew that we were going to have to generate a lot of, use a lot of electricity to move water from Saddleback Lake all the way up to the top of the mountain, which is around 2.5 miles away. We also wanted to make sure that our brand focused on being differentiated by the fact that we had a deep and sincere commitment to preserving our environment and our habitat. So we built a 40-acre solar farm on our property. We've invested in EV chargers for vehicles. We've invested in snowmaking equipment that uses eco-diesel technology, so it uses 20% less carbon fuel. All of our buildings that we're building are intended to be as energy efficient as possible, those kinds of things. Now, the level of investment required to make that happen is not insignificant. It's not the kind of investment that every ski area is going to be able to make. I could imagine that over the next 20 years, there could be a consolidation of ski areas in Maine. Those that can figure out how to invest in snowmaking, those that can invest in figuring out how to diversify their business model through the winter, those that can figure out how to survive in a shortened season. And by shortened season, I mean, probably around Christmas until the beginning to middle of April, depending on where you are in the state. Those are the ones that will survive and thrive. What I'd like to do as a state is identify opportunities to invest in that kind of technology. I also saw a question here that asked about the carbon footprint associated with bringing people further distances. So if there isn't skiing in New Jersey and Connecticut and some of those mid-Atlantic and southern New England places, if they have to travel further to get to Maine, doesn't that have an impact on carbon footprint? And is there investments being made in public transportation? I don't have the answer to that, although I think that's the answer. Hopefully we can get more people investing in electric vehicles. We can build out the infrastructure along the routes to make sure that that's an easy way for people to access rural communities in Maine. But I think public transportation, the way that Europe has built this out, is going to be key to us being able to accomplish the emission goals that we have, but also keeping people coming to Maine. I'll throw those out, but are there any other thoughts that the panel have on those two issues?
I just want to reiterate that you're right. Like in terms of the warming across the region, Maine is probably poised to be the most resilient because of their northerly location and because of the elevation of where the resorts are. And so it's encouraging, that southern New England is much more at risk for snow loss and warmer temperatures that are above freezing. So just wanted to reiterate that one.
Yeah, thanks. We have a question. There's a lot of social media sites dedicated to ice and snow conditions that rely on personal observations of the people who are taking part in winter activities. Are there any plans to integrate those into any of your action plans? Jeff, do you have any thoughts on that, or Carol Ann from a state perspective? Jenny from outdoor brands perspective?
I'll start. I mean, I think it's a good idea. And I think it's also really important for us to be ensuring that people know how to go out and check ice conditions and have the tools and training necessary to do that. And so I think it kind of goes into that knowledge bucket and marketing and awareness as well. So I think it's a good idea.
I'd be happy to put in a plug for community science observations, community snow observations. So if you go to communitysnowobs.org, you are in the backcountry. If you're a snowmobiler and you happen to have a ruler or we usually use avalanche probes, you can submit those snow depth observations to CSO. And that is a great way to get data, not just out into a mapping software that you can see it publicly, but also into the hands of scientists. Currently, I'm leading a project right now to try and expand automated snow observations in the Northeastern United States. Western US has a wonderful network called SnowTel. Eastern US does not have an equivalent like that. And we are looking for partners who are interested in those types of observations and being able to have that data streamlined into the folks that need it the most. And I would say outdoor recreation community is one that we would really love to be communicating with about the need for snow observations, not just the snow depth, but also how much water's in that snowpack. That too has impacts on water resource management, flood forecasting. The event that we saw in December 2023, really critical information that is needed out there. So yeah, I can send the community snow obs link through the chat, or we can do that as a follow-up.
Yeah, that'd be great. And what is it? Is it snow? What's the link again?
Community snow obs, as in observations.org.
Okay. Yeah, I think about when you try and map directions from one place to the next, that you go to Google Maps or whatever, and it's a resource to tell you how to get from point A to point B, but there's also Waze that will tell you accidents along the way, those kinds of things. And I find that a lot more helpful. If there's a way for us to have that information readily available to people, what are the questions that people are asking? Ice depths on lakes, there's probably a liability issue associated with posting those kinds of things. On the other hand, snow depth, I suspect there's not a liability associated with that. So, if there's a place you could go to that would show what the conditions are at various trails around the state, whether it's snowmobiling or cross-country skiing. You go to the alpine ski areas, they're pretty good at being able to show the depths of snow and the conditions on a mountain at any given time. But the question is that a state resource? Is that the kind of thing that Maine Outdoor Brands might consolidate as a part of the process? But that's a good question to ask. Thank you.
And this
Yeah,
is a
and-
good time, Andy, to mention again what Jenny was talking about in her comments. After this session, we'll send out a follow-up to all of the attendees on the call with more information on the Maine Outdoor Recreation Economy Roadmap and the sessions that Jenny and others are having next week, as well as a link on how to become involved in that process. So if there's any information that we're talking about today that includes links to more information, that will be in the follow-up email that goes to all of you.
Yeah. I'd also mentioned that, Climate Work Maine is dedicated to trying to be a resource for businesses in Maine. So, we hope that this is an ongoing conversation. If there are people out there that have questions, your answers don't have to stop with the end of this session. Please reach out to Jeff or myself or anyone on the panel, and we'll try and make sure we get your questions answered. All right, we have one here for any of you. What impact interactions has your work had on our state's Wabanaki populations? And I don't have an answer to that. Jeff, are you aware of any outreach that we have to Native American populations?
I'm not. Just generally all of our events, we try to do as much outreach as possible and be as inclusive as possible. So if there are suggestions on ways to communicate directly with certain populations in the state of Maine, please let us know.
And I would just say that NaviTour has all 5 nations guiding on the platform. So depending on the region, there are Wabanaki that are doing outdoor activities and cultural exploration.
That's
And
great.
I'm, along with the Office of Tourism, the Office of Outdoor Recreation, we're providing support for the Wabanaki Cultural Tourism Initiative, which is looking out to 2030. So yeah, we're engaged there as well.
Okay. Jeff, this question's for you. Could you speak to what specific role Climate Work Maine plays in supporting Maine's outdoor recreation economy? This is a somewhat unusual place for this webinar such as this. Great to see. Just curious to hear what you envision. Is it education, marketing, focus on themes such as all things electrical, decarb, et cetera?
Sure, and we're a pretty diverse and wide-ranging organization. The webinars that we've been doing through this Business Connector webinar series have mostly been about, what are the pragmatic, realistic things that businesses can start doing today to reduce energy in their operations, to market their products and services, to tell stories about their own sustainability and climate action plans. This is the first session that we've had that focuses on the economic impact of climate on a certain segment of the economy. And I just judging by the way this is going today, we want to do more of these, and we want to focus on other industry sectors as well. We had our first summit on Maine's economy and climate change last year, where we focused on the impact of climate change on the forestry, on the agriculture and farming, and other industries. And these are conversations that we will continue to have in future events, as well as some of these webinars.
And I would also mention that Climate Work Maine has a summit in May, May 9th, and that's how I got involved last year. That is extremely comprehensive. And so for anyone that would like to dive in and not only understand the issue better, but also understand the resources available to help you in your business, that would be a great place to start.
Thanks for the plug, Andy. And this summit that we're having in May, we're going to be talking about big issues. And one of those is climate migration. How can businesses better prepare for the influx of people that will be coming into the state to escape heat waves and droughts and floods that are happening in other states and other countries? How can businesses be prepared? And we've talked a little bit about climate migration today, because people will be coming here to live, but also to access the Maine winter, which is more resilient, as we've found, than other parts of the country.
This is kind of off topic, but I think one of the things we have to anticipate as a part of the dramatically increased temperatures in other parts of the country, where average temperatures in Arizona could hit 125, 130 degrees at some point in the next 5 years. We've got tornadoes and hurricanes and wildfires, all those kinds of things. It would tend to push more and more population towards us eventually. One of the questions is, as a state, how do we prepare for that kind of inevitable in-migration, which is really off topic to this, but I think something that Climate Work Maine can focus on. We got a question from the Bicycle Coalition. How important would it be for us to emphasize more human-powered recreation and local recreation over machine-powered and traveling longer distances to recreate? Regardless of the switch to electric from petroleum fuels, it seems that we could encourage individuals to do more through their choices for recreation, and that it could be a more significant part of the message our groups are getting out to people. Anybody have any thoughts on that before I dive in?
I can jump in quickly. It's a really interesting question, and I don't know that I can necessarily answer it directly. I think there's more crossover than we recognize. Activities aren't exclusive as far as what people do from a participation standpoint. I think, just to Jenny's point, continuing to get more people into the outdoors in whatever form really works best for them will help long-term in understanding why the outdoors is so important, get them engaged, start them to become stewards at whatever age they start to move into being outdoor recreationists. So I think, again, it's a really interesting question. You'd probably have to think about overall economic impact and what that looks like, and changes to the overall contributions to GDP. And, there's all kinds of things, I think, that part of that again would be a much deeper analysis than I can provide, but it's definitely really something to consider. But I do think the most important piece is just continuing to provide the access and the opportunity for folks who haven't had it before at whatever age. Usually the non-motorized is a really good entry point. It's almost an easier entry point in many instances. So that's so important as well. So again, probably not a great answer, but just thought I'd share some of those insights.
I would just like to say that the travel partners that we're working with from the international community are asking for more and more of these types of experiences. So, for example, one of our guides, Alejandro Strong, his experience sells completely on going from bus to bike to a pack raft back to a bike, back to the bus, and that's wildly popular. So even if we aren't thinking about it, the customer side of that, the visitors are asking for it, and so the guides are adapting and creating more of those pieces.
Yeah, I think from a state perspective, it would be out of the norm for a state to pick winners and losers in terms of what kind of recreation we encourage. I think the key is to encourage the kinds of sports that work well, kind of outdoor recreation that work well in Maine, certainly through the climates. And I look at alpine skiing, cross-country skiing. How are they diversifying their revenue streams? Adding fat bike, mountain biking into the mix. Mountain biking has become a really important part of the mix in a lot of ski areas. Sugarloaf has done an incredible job of building out mountain biking infrastructure. Up in Aroostook County, the Nordic Heritage Center in Presque Isle has an incredible network of mountain bike trails. A lot of Nordic centers and alpine centers are adding in fat biking as well. So, the question is, how do we promote the kinds of sports that work at each of these individual businesses? Motorized sports have a long and very strong tradition in Maine. I don't see the state of Maine, recommending people not do those kinds of things. Hopefully that industry becomes as energy efficient as possible. Hopefully they can find a way to diversify, and hopefully we can find parts of the state where there is still good snowmobiling in the winter, predictable snowmobiling. But I think the answer really is to identify those sports that work for individual businesses, and for the state to promote the breadth of experience and opportunities that the state offers. So I don't see any other questions out there. I don't know let me see if there's one. To what extent can ski resorts put in place adoption measures without driving up ticket prices that may disproportionately impact lower income families to create a barrier to entry to the sport? That is the age-old question of price elasticity for various things. And alpine skiing is becoming very, very expensive. And the trend is actually kind of becoming exponentially more so. I would say of all of the states in New England, the one that still has the best and most affordable skiing is the state of Maine. We have a number of community ski areas that offer access to alpine skiing that's very affordable. A number of alpine areas offer very approachable or very inexpensive alpine ticket prices if you buy far enough in advance. The cost of snowmaking, I don't think, is going to drive the cost of alpine tickets up at the four big areas, Thunder River, Sugarloaf, Saddleback, and Shawnee Peak. I think they already have robust snowmaking capacities. So if the prices are increased, it would not be because of investment in snowmaking. The question is, can the smaller ski areas develop that infrastructure through state and federal grants or other programs that would allow them to get into the game as well? And that's a question we probably can't answer today. But my hope is, and my prediction is, that Maine will still be able to offer very affordable alpine skiing to families for the foreseeable future.
Andy, there's also, Inclusive Ski that's working on this. Somebody helped me in Katahdin, the Butler Foundation, that you can go do free cross-country skiing on beautifully groomed trails. I forget the name of the Katahdin River Trail, goes along the Katahdin River in Presque Isle. So I think that there's a lot of small things happening that we could model and scale up. But I think it is also a very important question.
Yeah, the Nordic Heritage Center in Presque Isle and the 10th Mountain Center, actually the Fort Kent Outdoor Center now in Fort Kent, also offer free cross-country skiing. And those are two of the top Nordic venues in the world. So, And the reason that we built them up there was because of the longer winter and more predictable winter, which continues to be the case even in the kind of issues that we're seeing the rest of the state face now. So we have one more question. How do you plan the marketing for a transition month, such as March or November, not knowing what the conditions will be? How far in advance do you have to commit to marketing expenditures? I wonder what and when decisions are made at a state tourism level, as well as resorts, as well as when retail decides to hold sales. You know, that's a good question, Susan. I don't think there's a precise answer to that. I think a lot of ski areas are still struggling with that transition. And I think that's, again, where this concept of resilience comes in. What can we market for November and March? I'm not sure that March is going to be as much of an issue as April, but let's say, November and April. What can businesses plan on that would be predictable? Can they pivot from, for instance, a mountain bike event to a cross-country ski event in the event that there's enough snow on the ground? Or can they pivot from a ski event to a mountain bike event in case the snow conditions weren't there for it? That is the resilient question that all the ski areas are going to be facing. And I think all the outdoor recreation industries are going to be facing. And that's the question that as an industry, we have to answer in the next couple of years. I wish I had an answer for you, but that is the right question to be asking. Any thoughts from anybody else?
I would just say our guides are dealing with this, it may be even 4 months on that. So what they have to do is adapt either the type of experience. So it either goes from a cross-country ski to a hike, or they have to move their locations. The migratory animal piece, they again might have to move, or they change what it is that they're looking for. So they have to write the descriptions that we are marketing 9 to 15 months in advance to sort of say weather's not predictable. And so we may have to do, this or that. The market seems to be okay with that. The idea for the guides is that they want to be with a local that can give them that sort of local feel about where it is, and they're going to want to go to the best place. So they're excited that they're not locked into going to this place that maybe isn't going to be as great as if they adapt. So, but the marketing has to kind of tell that story, which does make it more challenging. You're trying to sell something quickly and you've only got their attention for a second. So it's a challenge, but we're working to overcome it.
So I want to jump on this one that we just got from Western Foothills Land Trust. So it says Robert Farm Preserve in Norway offers free access to groomed Nordic trails, warming huts, and equipment. They are awesome. When I was at Maine Winter Sports Center, we worked with them in OSI, and they're terrific. And I would say that there are more than the ones that I mentioned. Those are just the ones that I know of. And I think if you go to Ski Maine, that you'll be able to find a full list of Nordic Center resources that are available out there. And there are a number of places throughout the state that offer inexpensive to no cost Nordic skiing.
And Andy, Maine Trail Finder also is a really good resource. And I mean, certainly the Roberts Farm Preserve is incredible. I think also of Quarry Road Trails, and they have snowmaking for their Nordic. So yeah, there's a lot of great resources out there, but Maine Trail Finder also lists Nordic areas and conditions too, which is helpful.
Yeah, so Quarry Road has a good point, Caroline. Quarry Road has snowmaking, but they also have an incredibly talented volunteer organization that knows how to use that snowmaking. So very predictable conditions from Christmas through April typically there. And they're hosting a lot of events all the time too, which is an indication of how good they are at what they do. So I noticed that we have less than a minute left. Jeff, are there any closing thoughts that you have or want to get out there?
I just want to thank all of you for providing your expertise on the webinar this morning. There's a lot of information here. For those of you on the webinar, we recorded this, so we'll send out a link to the recording in case there's something on here that you weren't able to hear. And we'll also send links to more information, especially the roadmap process that Jenny and others are going through. We love to have action items come out of these webinars, and Jenny provided us with a very concrete one. So thank you for that. And just want to thank everyone. And as Jenny mentioned earlier, get out there and enjoy the outdoors, whether there's snow, rain, or sun, and enjoy what Maine has to offer.
There's no such thing as bad weather conditions, only bad clothing. So, all right. Well, thank you, everybody, and stay engaged, and let's figure out how to be resilient.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Good. Thank you.